Hey guys, it's Ms. Osborne back again with a North Carolina final exam review video for the Gilded Age brought from the 1865 to 1910. Okay, so just as a reminder, as you watch the video, make sure that you answer the guided questions that are provided. It's okay if you need to pause or rewatch the video in order to answer the guided questions. Really take your time with this activity. Okay, when the video ends, make sure that you summarize the video in paragraph form, looking at the main points. On your WSQ, you'll find some of the vocabulary words that I want you to highlight. Okay, so make sure you're using those bolded and underlined words that are in the video to write that summary. Okay, and then make sure that you finish up by asking one question, and this question can either be a question that you have about the video, a discussion question, or a question that you think that I would ask the class. Okay, so the essential questions that we're looking at in this video are: in what ways did politics evolve during the Gilded Age? And then how did the business change as a result of the Second Industrial Revolution? Okay, so in the Gilded Age, the first thing that we're going to look at is political machines. Okay, and a political machine was an informal group of politicians, and they essentially had complete control over the local government in big cities. Okay, New York and Chicago are those two main cities that had political machines. Okay, and these political leaders resorted to corruption in order to solve some of society's problems, and mainly these problems revolved around business, but also immigrants. Okay. They used illegal tactics because they offered people favors in order to get their vote. They bribed other political leaders in order to get what they wanted done, and they essentially did anything that they wanted to in order to maintain control and maintain their political office. Okay, and they really got the vote of immigrants because they helped immigrants gain citizenship. They gave them aid when they arrived, whether that was in the form of like a job or housing, and just generally speaking, helped them out as they came into America. Okay, and so the most infamous political boss is Tammany Hall in New York City, and that was led by William the Boss Tweed. Okay, so Ulysses S. Grant becomes the president after the Civil War is over. Okay, and he is one of the people who is going to be responsible for making sure that the Transcontinental Railroad is built. Okay, and so he sets up construction company Credit Mobilier, and Credit Mobilier is going to build part of the Transcontinental Railroad. Okay, and this company ends up charging the American public $23 million more than it would actually cost to build it, and that money goes all to the Union Pacific directors and their stockholders. Okay, so this company essentially stole money from the American people and gave it to their business leaders so that they could get more rich. Okay, another scandal that happened in Ulysses S. Grant's presidency was called the Whiskey Ring Scandal. Okay, and this scandal occurred when the Treasury Secretary starts diverting the tax collections from whiskey into private accounts. Again, all to benefit the leaders and the business leaders. Okay, the whiskey producers, they pay them bribes. Okay, they pay the government officials bribes in order to give them the taxes from their liquor. President Garfield becomes one of the presidents after Reconstruction is over, as we get into the late 1890s. Okay, and he won the election, but he ends up being shot by one of his supporters, Charles Guiteau, about 4 months into his term. Okay, and the reason that he is shot is because Charles Guiteau had been denied a job in Garfield's administration. Okay, and so in his place, Chester Arthur takes over the presidency, and he vows to support his president by getting rid of the spoils system. And the spoils system had been around for a very long time, ever since Andrew Jackson. Okay, and it's a system in which political supporters and people who had given money to campaigns are awarded jobs in the government based on these campaign contributions. Okay, and so when he comes into office, Arthur passes the Pendleton Civil Service Act, and the Pendleton Civil Service Act was supposed to get rid of the spoils system, okay, because it states that all promotions must be based on merit, not political connections or money. So four main business leaders are going to emerge during the Gilded Age. These are the four main industries that the American public is going to rely on. Okay, so Rockefeller is oil, Carnegie is steel, Vanderbilt is the railroad, and then Pullman actually made the cars that were given to the railroad and that ran on the railroad system itself. Okay, and so there's two types of business leaders. Okay, there's this idea that there is either robber barons or captains of industry. Okay, and a robber baron was the viewpoint that the entrepreneurs and the business leaders in the late 1800s profited unfairly by squeezing out their competitors and using tough tactics that did not benefit their workers and only benefited themselves. Okay? A captain of industry is the viewpoint that these entrepreneurs or business leaders use their business skills to make the American economy more productive, right? So they had these tough tactics, but really that was supporting the American economy, and they actually did us a service by using those tough tactics because our economy increased because of it. Okay? These industrial leaders mainly believe in a concept called laissez-faire economics. Okay? And you might have heard me calling it the hands-off approach, and that's when I did that silly dance in the classroom. Okay? And laissez-faire economics is essentially when the government takes their hands off of business, or the government does not interfere in business practices. Okay? And these business leaders want to create monopolies and trusts because that would mean that they had complete control over their different industries. Now, monopolies and trusts were outlawed by the Sherman Antitrust Act, but again, we have laissez-faire economics in which the government does not interfere in business practices. Okay, so back to these industrial leaders. Okay, John D. Rockefeller owns Standard Oil. Okay, and he's able to develop Standard Oil into a monopoly through expanding his business from vertical and horizontal integration. Okay, vertical integration is acquiring of companies that supply to the business. So, for example, if you had a meat packing industry, you would own the cows, you would own the cars that would transport the cows, you would own the factory that made the meat. And then you would also own the transport to the grocery stores. Okay, so you owned all the different aspects to that business. Horizontal integration was acquiring companies that produce the same product. Kind of similarly, if, for example, if Nike was to expand to take over Foot Locker, that would be a form of horizontal integration. Okay, and Rockefeller is known because he gives so much of his fortune to a charity that he created called the Rockefeller Foundation. Okay, Andrew Carnegie actually lives what we call the rags to riches story, right? Started from the bottom, now I'm here. Okay, because he immigrated to the United States, and through hard work, he was able to advance from his early jobs as a newspaper boy and investing wisely in certain businesses. Okay, and he is known for creating the Carnegie Steel Company. He also, just like Rockefeller, is going to devote his life to philanthropy, giving most of his money to education, and that's where we see Carnegie Mellon University being created. Okay, and he believed in the gospel of wealth, that wealthy people have a duty to the rest of society to provide for them, right? So that wealthy people would help to get rid of the social ills. Cornelius Vanderbilt is one of the main leaders of the New York Central Railroad that stretches from Michigan to Canada, and it's about 4,500 miles of track. Okay, he also built what's here in North Carolina, the Biltmore Estate. Okay, George Pullman also is one of the industrial tycoons, and he designs the railroad cars. The main thing that you need to remember about Pullman is that the Pullman Palace Car Company is based in Chicago, and it actually creates an entire town with homes, shops, a church, and a library where all of their workers were required to live. Okay, and they had very, very strict rules, and they actually control their workers' lives through this town, essentially. So during the Second Industrial Revolution, machines are going to be replacing human labor, okay? And so we're going to be dependent less upon skilled laborers and more upon unskilled laborers, okay? So immigrants, women, and children are going to significantly increase the workforce, okay? Children are going to be a main source of work. And the other thing to note is that women and children were not paid the same as men. Okay, and two major labor unions are going to emerge out of this movement, the Knights of Labor and the American Federation of Labor. Okay, and they're two very different unions. The Knights of Labor grew because they had an open membership policy. They allowed unskilled laborers, women, immigrants, African Americans. They really appealed to the common man. Whereas the American Federation of Labor, that was led by Samuel Gompers, is mainly a skilled labor union. okay, and they focus more on white laborers in the skilled industries such as like carpentry, okay, and they fight for higher wages, shorter hours, and better working conditions. Both of these labor unions are both going to fight for that. The Haymarket Square riot of 1892 and the Pullman strike of 1894 dampens the environment for labor unions to be successful. Okay, so as these crowds gathered in Haymarket Square in Chicago, they were protesting police violence that had occurred at a strike the day before. Someone threw a bomb into the crowd, people panicked, guns were fired, and the people, the American people, start blaming foreign-born unionists for the violence. And this leads to increased discrimination against immigrants who were already pretty discriminated against. Okay? So the Pullman strike is led by the workers of the Pullman Company. If you remember, the Pullman Company is significant because they create their own town where they're essentially able to keep their workers under control. Okay, and so the company actually cut the wages of the workers, but it doesn't lower the rent or the prices in the town owned by the company. Okay, and so they keep the prices high and the rent high, and so the people have less money to spend. Okay, and the U.S. government actually intervenes on behalf of the Pullman Company and ends the strike because it was disrupting the delivery of the United States mail. Okay, so as this comes to the close, don't forget to answer the guided questions. If you need to go back and pause the video or rewatch the video, then that is totally fine. I encourage you to do that. Once you feel like you have a good understanding of the video, summarize in paragraph form the main points of the video using the vocabulary given to you and using those bolded and underlined words. Okay, then also make sure that you ask one question that's either a question about that video or a discussion question that you want to bring to class. I look forward to seeing you with our next video. Hope you have a great day.